Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Tari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Tari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotara Shuddha Shri Srimad Bhagavatam Srimad Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotara Shuddha Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Deva Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Eighth Canto. Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations, Chapter 20. Bali Maharaj surrenders the universe. Text 23. Start with 23. So if you could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rasam. Yeah, please repeat after me. Achashta Angritale Ta Padayor Mahim Mahidran Purushasya Changyaho Patatrino Januni Vishwa Morter Urvor Ganam Marutam Indrasenaha Rasamachastangritale Tatpadayor Mahim Mahidran Purushasya Jangyaho. Patatrino Januni Vishwamurter. Urvorganam Marutam Indrasenaha. Rasam Achashtangritaleta Padayor. Mahim Mahidran Purushasya Jangyaho. Patatrino Januni Vishwamurter. Urvar Ganamarutam Indrasenaha. Rasamachashtangritaleta Padayor. Mahim Mahidran Purushasya Jangyaho. Patatrino Januni Vishwamurter. Urvorganam Marutam Indrasenaha. Any online reciters?
Rasama Chastangri Taleta Padayor. Mahidran Purushasya Changayo. Patatrino Januni Vishvamurter. Urvorganam Maruta Mindrasenaha.
Rasamachashtam Ritaleta Padayo Ahim Mahigran Purushasya Jangayo Patatrino Janvi Vishvamurte Urvorganam Marutam Indrasinaha.
Rasam, the lower planetary system. Achashta, observed. Angri Tale, beneath the feet or the soul. Or on the soul. Ata, thereafter. Pariyo, on the feet. Mahim, the surface of the land. Mahidran, the mountains. Purushasya, of the giant personality of Godhead. Jangyaho, on the calves. Patatrinaha, the flying living entities. Januni, on the knees. Vishvamurte, of the form of the gigantic Lord. Urva, on the thighs. Ganam Marutam, varieties of air. Indrasenaha, Bali Maharaj, who had obtained the soldiers of King Indra and who was situated in the post of Indra. Translation. Thereafter Bali Maharaj, who was occupying the seat of King Indra, could see the lower planetary systems, such as Rasautala, on the soles of the feet of the Lord's universal form. He saw on the Lord's feet the surface of the globe, on the surface of his calves all the mountains, on his knees the various birds, and on his thighs the varieties of air. Purport. The universal situation is described herein in regard to the complete constitution of the Lord's gigantic universal form. The study of this universal form begins from the soul. S-O-L-E. Above the soles are the feet. Above the feet are the calves. Above the calves are the knees, and above the knees are the thighs. Thus the parts of the universal body, one after another, are described herein. The knees are the place of birds, and above that are varieties of air. The birds can fly over the mountains, and above the birds are varieties of air. Bali Maharaj, next text. Bali Maharaj saw beneath the garments of the Lord, who acts wonderfully, the evening twilight. In the Lord's private parts he saw the Prajapatis, and in the round portion of the waist he saw himself with his confidential associates. In the Lord's navel he saw the sky. On the Lord's waist he saw the 7 oceans, and on the Lord's bosom he saw all the clusters of stars. My dear king, on the heart of Lord Murari he saw religion, on the chest both pleasing words and truthfulness, in the mind the moon, on the bosom the goddess of fortune with the lotus flower in her hand, on the neck all the Vedas and all sound vibrations, on the arms all the demigods headed by King Indra, in both ears all the directions, on the head the upper planetary systems, on the hair the clouds, in the nostrils the wind, on the eyes the sun, and in the mouth fire. From his words came all the Vedic mantras. On his tongue was the demigod of water, Varundev. On his eyebrows were the regulative principles, and on his eyelids were day and night. When his eyes were open, it was daytime, and when they were closed, it was night. On his forehead was anger, and on his lips was greed. O king, in his touch were lusty desires, in his semen were all the waters, on his back was irreligion, and in his wonderful activities or steps was the fire of sacrifice. On his shadow was death, in his smile was illusory energy, and on his hairs of his body were all the drugs and herbs. In his veins were all the rivers, On his nails were all the stones. In his intelligence were Lord Brahma, the demigods, and the great saintly persons. And throughout his entire body and senses were all living entities, moving and stationary. Bali Maharaj thus saw everything in the gigantic body of the Lord. Okay, next. O king, when all the demons, the followers of Maharaj Bali, saw the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who held everything within his body, when they saw in the Lord's hand his disc, known as the Sudarshan Chakra, which generates intolerable heat, and when they heard the tumultuous sound of his bow, all of these caused lamentation within their hearts. So would someone like to give a context of what's going on here for those who haven't been attending? Would you like to do that, Cholatella? You haven't been attending either? Damrash? I'd give some context. All right, Javita Prabhu. Because there's the last few descriptions we've read, what's the context? That's the question. Because some haven't been.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's happened is that the context is that Bali, in his role as the head of the demons, has taken over the demigods' planets and exiled the demigods. And Aditi was very upset. She practiced austerity and sacrifice and had Vamanadeva as her offspring, child. He came. So then Vamanadeva went to Bali's sacrifice. He's performing a sacrifice, and he was disguised as a diminutive brahmachari, Brahman, you see. And
but he's Krishna.
Is actually Krishna, yeah, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Shukracharya could see that, and so after Bali was seeing this nice brahmachari, he offered him whatever he wanted, and he said, "I just want 3 steps of land." But Shukra said, "Don't give him anything, because it's Krishna. He'll take everything, and then you'll be bereft of all opulence." What he was really saying, and so will I, because I'm dependent on you. But that's neither. So Bali had already promised him 3 steps of land. So Shukra says, "It's okay. You can go back on the promise. No problem." So Bali rejected Shukracharya. He said, "No, I'm not going to follow you anymore," which is a serious thing, because he was his guru. So Shukracharya was very upset at that, but Bali insisted on giving him the chariot, which he did. And as soon as he received it, he's just this little, diminutive Brahman with 3 steps of land was nothing. But he expanded and expanded and expanded into the whole universal form. Yes. And that's what's being described here.
Yes.
On the different parts of his body or such and such like that.
Yes, so Vamanadeva expanded into this universal form. So that's the context here. And Bali Maharaj, as the chapter is titled, he surrendered to the universe. So he was in charge of the whole universe at the time. So Bali Maharaj is surrendering to the universe, not surrendering to the universe, surrendering the universe to Vamanadeva. So Vamanadeva, he said, "Okay, you're giving me these 3 steps of land." So then he goes into this gigantic universal form, and then he continues to take his 3 steps, which covers everything. 2 covers everything. 1 step, he says, "Where's the last step? Where should we put the last step?" Right? And what does he say? He says, "You could just put it right on my head." In other words, I surrender to you, Vamanadeva. So when the demons, says here, when the demons, the followers of Maharaj Bali, saw the universal form, so they saw this gigantic form, who held everything within his body, when they saw the Lord's hand, in the Lord's hand is disc, known as the Sudarshan Chakra, which generates intolerable heat. And when they heard the tumultuous sound of his bow, all of these caused lamentation within their hearts. All the demons were. The Lord's conch shell named Panchajanya, which made sounds like that of a cloud, the very forceful club named Kumodiki, the sword named Vidyadhara, with a shield decorated with hundreds of moon-like spots, and also Akshaya Shayaka, the best of quivers, all of these appeared together to offer prayers to the Lord. So everybody knows what a quiver is? Mm-hmm. Next. These associates, headed by Sunanda and other chief associates, and accompanied by all the predominating deities of the various planets, offered prayers to the Lord, who wore a brilliant helmet, bracelets, and glittering earrings that resembled fish. On the Lord's bosom was the lock of hair called Srivatsa, and on the transcendental jewel named Kaustuba. He wore a yellow garment covered by a belt, and he was decorated by a flower garland surrounded by bees. Manifesting himself in this way, O king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities were wonderful, covered the entire surface of the earth with one footstep, the sky with his body, and all directions with his arms. Purport. One might argue, since Bali Maharaj promised Vamanadeva only the land occupied by his steps, why did Lord Vamanadeva occupy the sky also? In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami says that the steps include everything, downward and upward. When one stands up, he certainly occupies certain parts of the sky and certain portions of the earth below his feet. Thus, there was nothing uncommon for the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he occupied the entire sky with his body. Om Gyan Tibidandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshulamnadatamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Karidavachalam Bhangam Mangai Tegri Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurundin Tarinam Vansha Kalpadribishcha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One of the ways Krishna enchants, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, enchants us is by intrigue. In other words, by some type of trickery. Just like the perfect example of this is Vamanadeva. He comes as a beautiful young Brahmin boy, and Bali Maharaj is charmed by him. And he just asks, I just want 3 steps of land, that's all I want. So in other words, this was a trick. So we see that happens sometimes, that Krishna enchants us by intrigue. And it happens quite often, especially through his devotees. Once Srila Prabhupada asked his disciples on a morning walk, there's so many wonderful morning walks Srila Prabhupada had with his disciples, and so many conversations happened on those morning walks. So on one morning walk, Srila Prabhupada asked the devotees, he would sometimes ask them questions. So he asked the devotees, we have Bhajanarayan Swami here. He went on a number of walks with Srila Prabhupada. I'm not sure how many, but did he ever go on a walk with Javita Prabhu? Nice. How many? 1. Okay, nice. Could say you went. Yeah, say you went. So he would ask the devotees questions sometimes, and one of the times he said, he asked his disciples, is a devotee crooked or straightforward in their dealings? And then all the devotees, of course, they said, Srila Prabhupada, of course, the devotee is straightforward. They're honest and straightforward. And then Srila Prabhupada said, no. And he said, a devotee is crooked. And he said, just like the example is with myself and all of you. I told you just chant Hare Krishna, just chant and be happy, but now you weren't necessarily thinking you had to give anything up, but now you've given everything to Krishna. You've surrendered everything to Krishna, your whole life to Krishna. So in this way, he gave the example of himself. Of course, when Vamanadeva takes everything, it's for the benefit of Bali Maharaj, because ultimately everything belongs to Krishna anyways. When Srila Prabhupada inspires his disciples and grand disciples and so on to surrender their lives to Krishna, to God, then it's to their benefit. But there is some you could say, transcendental trickery there. And as Srila Prabhupada would say, was it 100 steps or 10 steps? If you take one step towards Krishna, is it 10 steps? 10, okay. If you take one step towards Krishna, Krishna will take 10 steps towards you. So it's a good deal. So if we just make a little effort to be Krishna conscious or to reawaken our Krishna consciousness, then Krishna will help us. Krishna will come to our rescue. And as Srila Prabhupada's father used to tell him that Krishna has so many hands, just like here we see the universal form, this gigantic form with so many hands. I mean, he's like covering the whole, everything, right? So he says, so his father, Srila Prabhupada's father would say, Krishna, he has so many hands, and you just have your two hands. So he said, if he takes something away from you, how can you compete with him? And he said, but if he gives you something with all of your hands, how can you accept all of that? So if we try to take steps towards Krishna, then Krishna will help us. Just yesterday there was a Mayavadi purport that Govardhan read. Means Srila Prabhupada was critiquing Mayavad, means the philosophy that we are all one, absolutely, we're all God and so on. So when Srila Prabhupada met one young man in Boston, he asked, the man was asking him, there's so many gurus, there's so many paths, which one do we pick? How are we supposed to know? And then Srila Prabhupada said, well, that depends. Do you want to serve God or do you want to become God? And the person was thinking, yes, he was thinking, I had this idea of becoming God. But then Srila Prabhupada said that if you want to serve God, they'll help you. He'll give you everything you need. Just the examples given, Brahmanda Brahmati Kon Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij, that the plant of devotion, it's a creeper, it's growing, producing the fruit of love of God eventually. So it needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs so many things. So Srila Prabhupada was saying that Krishna will help you. He will give you the sunlight, he'll give you the water, he'll give you everything you need to grow this Bhakti Lata Bij nicely. And then he said that Krishna is always God. He's God on the lap of Mother Yashoda. Kartik's coming up. Hare Krishna. He is God on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, speaking to Arjuna. He's always God. He said he does become God through meditation. So he said if you want to serve God, then God will help you. And if you want to be God, why should he help the competition? So yes, he will help us in so many different ways. A famous short story is that there's a man in a particular town and there's a big flood. Sometimes it happens, we see floods around. It could be very dangerous. It's not just in the movies or something. Sometimes there's real floods and you have to evacuate and so on, get out of there. And so there's a big flood, and the man climbed up onto his house to avoid the flood, and the water was rising, and then a boat came by, and the guy said, "Hop on the boat." And then the guy on the top of the roof said, "Oh, no. I said, God will save me." So then a guy in a jet ski, jet skis, right? Jet ski comes by and hop on the jet ski. "Oh, no. God will save me." So then a helicopter comes by, throws the rope down. And the guy in the helicopter says, "Grab the rope, man, pull you up." No, God will save me. And then eventually the water comes up, and then the guy drowns. So he's there in heaven and meeting God, and he asks him a question. He says, "Oh, why didn't you help me? I was depending on you." And then God said, "Well, I mean, I sent the boat, I sent the jet ski, I sent the rope, like, what else do you want?" So in so many ways, Krishna will help us, but we have to accept that. We have to accept that help. Just like if I'm in a room, Srila Prabhupada's Guru Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur give the example that you can't curse the sun for not coming into your room. It means the rays of the sun if you keep the curtains closed. Blackout curtains. You say, why aren't I getting any sunlight? So we have to go out into the sun. We have to accept the mercy of Krishna that's available. And that mercy comes in the form of so many different things: devotee association, Srimad Bhagavatam class, the holy names of Krishna, which really these are different forms of service we perform, different types of devotional service. But this devotional service has to be done, again, it has to be accepted. If we keep our walls up, we keep our walls up, we don't allow Krishna to come in, then we won't get the benefit. Just like Sureshvara, and who else was changing this light bulb yesterday? Who was helping you? Who? Yeah, Dvijamani was helping him. So there's a saying about changing the light bulb in the Hare Krishna movement. And the saying is, how many Hare Krishnas does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is 4. So it takes the GBC, the temple president, and the Bhakta leader to convince the Bhakta that Krishna wants him to do it. So in other words, sometimes there's a lack of understanding or realization that it's a place of service, and whatever we're really given is actually a great privilege, right? As Srila Prabhupada's translation of the Hare Krishna mantra, please engage me in your devotional service, but he specifically used that word, the privilege of devotional service. It's a great privilege. Some devotee, I remember, he was saying how he woke up one morning and his hand wasn't working. It's just, and then he couldn't chant on his beads. So he was feeling like, eventually it came back, his hand, but we could see how so many things are privileged. Like we have certain facilities, and sometimes people have the experiences, once those are gone somehow or other, they lose them. They think, oh my God, I really wish I would have taken advantage of those. So yes, we have to make room for Krishna within our heart. We have to make room for the devotees in our heart, and realize that without Krishna being very clearly manifested in our heart, or without really engaging in service to Krishna, our heart is like vacant. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, right, consider this whole universe is vacant without your absence. And in a sense, you could say it's like worse than vacant. It's like a ghost town. I was in El Paso some time ago, and I had to stop at a store, and there was some song going on. So, I mean, I guess I could have plugged my ears and chanted it. But I heard the song. Maybe I could have just kind of not focused on it. But I heard the song, and I try to relate things to Krishna, relate things to Krishna consciousness. So, the song this man was singing. And he was singing and he was saying, "My heart without you is just like a ghost town." That was his. He's probably missing his whatever wife or girlfriend or whatever. But I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, yes, we could look at that just like with Krishna. Without Krishna, our heart's just like a ghost town. The ghost of loneliness, the ghost of whatever it is. So many different ghosts are there. But then Krishna comes and all the ghosts go away. As Srila Prabhupada, one time I think it was in London, maybe it was somewhere else, but he was with a cane going around the room like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And the devotee said, "Oh, what are you doing, Prabhupada?" And he said, I'm chasing out the ghosts. Like it was a normal thing to do. So, yeah, the Hare Krishna mantra chased out the ghost of loneliness, or whatever it is. Emptiness, loneliness, lack of purpose, whatever is ailing us. All right, any question or comment? Yes. Can you pass the mic to him? Sankarshan is bringing the mic. Yeah.
I have a question, but I have a comment first. That was in the Kirtanandam told me that story. Mm-hmm. And it was, Prabhupada was staying at, chasing out the ghosts. Mm-hmm. He was traveling as Prabhupada's assistant with Srila Prabhupada. I don't know the year, I don't know where, other than it was in India at a life member's house. Mm. It was an old, been in the family for hundreds of years, or, a couple hundred years. So that's where that happened. As far as walking into a store and hearing the music or whatever it is, Shruti Kirti told me that he was flying with Prabhupada somewhere, and it's in the days when you didn't have your private screen. Each section, it pulled down a screen for each section on the plane. And it happened to be this big screen, because it has to serve the whole section of the, that part of the plane. So they pulled it down. It was only 3 or 4 feet in front of Prabhupada, 3 or 4 rows of seats in front of Prabhupada. It was like right in your face. And it was a Rambo movie. Now, Prabhupada didn't comment on it initially. And Shruti Kirti was, trying to look the other way and this and that. And after about 20 minutes of it, Prabhupada turned to Shruti Kirti and said, "He's not dead yet?" And if you think about it, they're dropping him out of a plane, a tank's driving. Prabhupada immediately saw the farce of the whole thing, He'd be dead in the first 5 minutes. So there's that. Here's my question. What is Sukracharya seeing? Because you mentioned, and we know the Leela storyline, Sukracharya is saying, don't give division, he'll take everything. Mm-hmm. Now, did Sukracharya actually know that Vamanadeva was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Avatari, the source, Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam, all that, the Hamsarasha Prabhu? Did he know that this is Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes? Or did he think, did he think that this Vamanadeva is actually, sometimes they have a mundane idea of Vishnu, that he's the head of the demigods, you know. A lot of Indians think, you know, oh, there's the triumvirate, there's Shiva, there's Vishnu, and there's Shiva, and they're all on the same level, you know, all that hodgepodge stuff. So that's my question, with Sukracharya saying, don't give to Vishnu, don't serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the owner of all things, because I'll be out of my bread and butter. Or was he just confused? It's a genuine question.
Yeah, from the descriptions, he definitely says, okay, this is Vishnu, he'll take everything. That's there. Now, in terms of him like realizing, okay, because we say, oh, does he know he's the Supreme Personality of God? Because when we talk about knowing, there's theoretical knowledge and then there's realized knowledge. So if he had realized knowledge that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and so on, the whole thing, then he would surrender himself. So he doesn't have that realized knowledge, but he has some theoretical knowledge. Okay, this is Vishnu. Now, whether he thinks he's some powerful being that has mystic powers or equal to the demigods or this and that, I mean, he clearly has an idea that he's a powerful personality who could take everything. But in terms of whether he thinks he's equal to the demigods and so on, I'm not exactly sure.
What do you say? Like he could be, sorry, he could be above all he could be the top person, top entity of all the demigods.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah.
like that Vishnu shade. No, you're good. Dravida, you want to take a whack at it?
He wasn't paying attention.
Just like Hiranyakashipu and so many others are very powerful. Shukracharya had some idea that Vishnu is powerful. So the question Dravida Prabhu that Bajranayan Swami that asked was, is it that Shukracharya absolutely knew that Vamanadeva was Vishnu, like the cause of all causes, or was he thinking he was just another powerful demigod or something like that? Which I said, we know that Shukracharya addresses him as Vishnu, but he clearly doesn't have the full realization that he's Vishnu, because else he would surrender.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, is he thinking he's the head of all the gods or something like that?
Well, from my understanding, he could understand that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that he would take everything. You know, he would do this trick and take everything, and that's what he saw. He wanted him, don't offer him anything, he'll take everything. And Bali said, oh, you know, you just tell me.
It's interesting with the demons' understandings, though, with their different understanding about Krishna or Vishnu, like in the pastime of Nrsingadev with Hiranyakashipu. I mean, Nrsingadev came out, and you could imagine, you know, maybe he would just surrender, and but he didn't know. Let's fight, and they had a whole battle. So he didn't have this understanding that he was thinking he could kill him. He could kill Vishnu. So it was interesting. But
My understanding, I'm just thinking, thanks, Prabhu. My understanding, you know, if you don't understand that God is God and you should surrender, you have a muddled understanding. And that's how they function. They haven't figured it out, and they don't have seamless logic, or they would surrender. So he could my understanding, and I'm going to go back and look at this set of verses, but my understanding is he had a muddled understanding. This is Vishnu. Vishnu's the supreme, but like you said, it was kind of a theoretical, you know, okay, we know there's God out there, but they don't work it through. If God is the source of all forms, then how can he not have a form? So they don't have seamless logic. Mm-hmm. So I think, and I hate to say I think, my understanding is that he had some muddled idea. And even they have a muddled, I mean, people, I've lost my temper at God. You know, why have you done this? Why didn't you do this? Well, obviously, if I had a cool head at the moment, I would understand that everything, Krishna is all good, absolute. So, you know, even though my boat is sinking and this is happening and, you know, my whole family blew up or, you know, whatever it is, ultimately there's Krishna and it's good. But we can be overwhelmed by the moment. So I take it that Sukracharya thinks I'm going to lose my material facility. So he's angry, his intelligence is bewildered, his understanding is muddled. Because if we look at Bali Maharaj, who's the devotee, he surrenders immediately. Mm-hmm. So that's all I can think of, is he's got a cloudy understanding, bewildered by his material interests and desire, and therefore he's just ranting and raving, you know, in a distorted logic.
Yeah, yeah. Just like Shukracharya, I mean, he's the guru of the demons, so if he had so much understanding, you'd think he'd just say, hey, you know, you're up for, you know, you're not going to win, you know, like, it's just all of the fights you try to have and this and that with Vishnu and so on, you're not going to win. So you think he would just tell them that, but he doesn't. He encourages them to, you know, do what they do. So, all right, and
Well, yeah, I'm with you. I think that one interesting aspect of this, if you recall, is that when Vamana appeared before Aditi, he came as Narayan. You know, he didn't. Then he turned into that diminutive form of the Brahman, and he said, because what's the big deal? He just, as Ryan is there, he just go and take back the worlds of the demons and kick the demons out, and you know, be done. But he said that no, they have gotten the power has come because they're respecting the Brahmins, and especially Shukracharya. Mm-hmm. So he had to have this whole ruse in which Bali would reject Shukracharya and no longer be under his care. In other words, no longer be empowered by serving the Brahmin. That way, and that's the reason for the whole ruse, the whole mm-hmm. thing. And I think the problem with the demons is that they're so intoxicated with their power and their material desire that they're irrational. Just like I'm always amazed. Like you read Dhenukasura. I mean, they're donkeys after all, but they have some intelligence. And so when Dhenukasura is killed, his friend, Prabhu says, his friends and associates, they all run forward to, and you know, well, wait a minute, he's the most powerful one. He was just killed easily. Let's get out of here. You know, yeah. They're controlled by that lower mode, and it's enraged. They lose their intelligence.
Yeah, same with Hiranyakashipu when he was. I mean, all of these soldiers came, and Nrsimhadev took care of all of them, but they could have just, you know, ran. Yeah. They didn't. Yeah. Well, that's true, but still.
Yeah,
you've got a point that, you know, that you stand up to any challenges as Kshatriya code.
But out of exception, you think, geez, it's Nrsimhadev. You know, if you have any exception as a Kshatriya to hit the road, I mean, that would be the. Yes.
I don't know about that one. That sounds like speculation.
I would offer. You don't think he was told that? I mean, sorry, I should have gotten that. You know, like the Alamo. I mean, I'm going to American history, but it was a lost cause but they went down fighting to the last man. I mean, that's not actually what happened historically, but that's an American myth. But there are noble people who've sacrificed their lives in a noble cause. So a perversion of that mood, just like somebody was saying, is that, you know, even though they know they're going to lose, there's a certain, I'm defending your Kshatriya mood, that even though they know they're going to lose, to go down fighting for their cause, that's, you know, there's some, that's an element of it. But I think the main element is cluttered intelligence, overwhelmed by anger and pride and attachment.
Yeah,
and
they
all
could have
that.
just surrendered, right? Like, okay, you killed our master. You know, you're obviously the supreme person of Godhead, and you know. Anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
I see both sides. Yeah.
What's fascinating is that if the demons were rational and ran, you know, I mean, they said, let's get out of here. This is a hopeless cause. They wouldn't have been killed by Vishnu, and that's the great benefit. When they're killed by Vishnu, they're purified, they get liberation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mercy.
You had
Yes, exactly.
something, Chalita? You could ask, or you could comment.
Like a different part of your class, though. So
That's fine.
okay, yeah. You mentioned about how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made the analogy of we have to like let Krishna in. Like you can't say like the sun coming into your room and you've got blackout curtains.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had any other comments about how we can practically like allow Krishna in. You know, we're like doing this process, but I feel like it's possible to like kind of go through the motions and not really like feel Krishna's love and Krishna's mercy. So I was wondering if you had anything to say about that.
Well, you have days. I mean, there's different ways of going about it. There's so many things that could be done, but one thing that comes to my mind is like making an extra effort to do something for Krishna. So, for example, you have holidays, like you have Janmashtami or you have Radhashtami coming up, or so many different things. And those days are opportunities where we could do something extra for Krishna or special, something, try to, whatever that may be. Like devotees, sometimes they make this, with different temples I've seen, they make like a whole flower, lotus, where Prabhupada's sitting. It's like an extra endeavor, and they feel some special mercy on that basis. Or, for example, let's say somebody's at the Krishna lounge or something, or around, and you make like a special endeavor to speak with them and try to encourage them and answer their questions or whatever. And from that, we could feel some special mercy, you could say. But there's so many things like that that we could do. And practically, whatever it may be, if we just try to do that and really try to surrender in the sense of absorb ourselves in whatever that may be, talking with someone or doing something for some festival, or trying to get into reading some of Prabhupada's purports, then we could feel that. Yeah. So, that's something.
It's a good question and a good answer.
Anyone would like to add anything about that? No? Okay. All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada.